Hello and welcome to the I'm At a Mindset podcast. My name is James. This is Gail. It's so exciting to be with you finally. This is our first show, our first episode, our introduction, and we're so excited to bring you this podcast. We have so much to share. It's been a long time coming. I'm feeling pretty excited. I don't know about you.
I'm very excited.
We want this podcast to be real. Gail and I love to just talk about things that really matter. We want it to be casual. We want it to be a conversation. We want you to see the true us in its raw form, which could be a little scary. So we did say to ourselves
Be authentic.
that we want to be authentic.
Yes.
And so in as much as we want to be engaging and not boring, we just want to be authentic. We don't want this to be like a one-sided thing where we're entertaining or anything. We just want to share what's on our hearts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And help people.
So the I'm At a Mindset really comes down to one key thing, and that is self-worth. We're going to tell you more about that in a minute, but we both feel so convicted that self-worth is really at the heart of so many issues and problems that we all have. It's going to be a podcast speaking from our experience, my experience in particular, over the last 4 or 5 years, or even longer, to be honest.
Yes. A lifetime.
Yes. And it's because we feel, and I feel, that we misunderstand the difference between, self-worth and self-esteem.
Yes.
There's a million resources, books, podcasts out there speaking about self-esteem, and we believe that they're missing something important. So if we were to compare the two, just as a starting point, what would you say is the difference between self-esteem and self-worth?
Self-esteem is the value you get from accomplishments, how the world views you, different accolades and experiences, and it's external. So it's fleeting, but self-worth is your inherent value as a human being. And it's more about unconditional love for yourself, just for being a human being and just for existing.
So big and so important
Yes.
because, from our backgrounds, we come from a faith background, but from any background, it almost seems like everything is about what I have to do.
Right.
What I have to do in religious speak, works, what I have to do to please others, what I have to do to please God. In the general society and in media, it's what do I do for a living? Or what are my accomplishments? Or how much money do I earn?
Right.
And they say that men get their esteem from their jobs, women get their esteems from what they do for their husbands, and it's all do.
Or children.
Or for their children. And it's all like about what you do.
It's all about performance.
And we have found, and I have found personally, that no matter how much you do, you never can fill that hole.
No.
And doing doesn't do it, doesn't cut it. And so if you're just chasing self-esteem by what you do and how well you do it to try to please others, then you end up saying things like, I don't feel good about myself because I got criticized, or I didn't please people, I disappointed my dad, or
I lost my job.
I failed at this, I'm not good enough, I don't earn enough money, I don't have as good a job as I could have. And it's all that external reference point.
Yes.
Or what we call an external locus of control, external reference point. Whereas self-esteem, as we're going to find out in this episode and subsequent episodes, self-worth, thank you. Self-worth, as opposed to self-esteem, is even if I fail,
yes,
or even if I displease people, or even if people disapprove of me, I still know that I matter.
Yes.
And that I have intrinsic value, and that no circumstance and no person can change that.
No.
You were telling me earlier that it's a lot like a joy and happiness. Yeah.
Yes. So happiness is the same way. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness is in the moment. You get a new job and you're excited and you're happy. You're, being happy with your children, or a trip you take, or things like that. But joy is deeper. Joy is inside, and no matter what happens, nothing can steal that feeling of joy from you, because it's not complacent.
Mm-hmm.
It is unconditional.
Yeah. And it's regardless
So
of
it's the
circumstances. That's
exactly.
what you're saying. So
Yes.
it doesn't fluctuate.
Right.
And that word fluctuate, if I had to sum up my journey, especially going through some stuff that we want to share with you later, fluctuating emotions and riding that wave up and down of trying to, you know, I guess both with self esteem and with happiness as opposed to joy and
And
self
self-worth.
worth. It is this ebb and flow, never ending ebbing and flowing, trying to pursue it. And we truly believe that if we get to the root of the problem,
Mhm.
then we're going to have something more firm that is intrinsic, that no matter what people say, it's not going to matter because I matter and I have
Exactly.
a voice. And we're hoping that this will be a revelation for you as well in your personal life, in your mindset, because we're often telling ourselves a lot of negative self talk and lies
Yes.
in relationships because, we often are trying to work from an extrinsic perspective. And that's a never ending piece of string in a marriage or in a dating relationship. And then professionally as well, as you work maybe under a boss or if you're an entrepreneur, we believe that nailing down the foundations like this will just help us in terms of success in life and being able to offer real impact to others in our lives.
Yes, because if you get to the core of it and you realize and own your self-worth, then those external factors aren't going to matter. When someone doesn't like you or someone treats you badly, it does not dictate the worth of you as a
Hmm.
human being.
Yes.
Those factors are not what make you you. You are unique
Hmm.
and you are valuable just as a
Yes.
human being. And we want you to realize that and how important it is. And it helps as broken people,
Yes.
it helps you realize that the brokenness doesn't define you.
Yes.
What you've been through, your good and bad, they don't define you. Your worth is uniquely because and inherently because you are a human being, and that is with you regardless of what happens to you.
And as I look at the material out there, and I don't want to name books and podcasts, but a lot of it is heading in this direction
Right.
and the importance of, not taking responsibility for what other people say and not letting them affect you and that sort of thing and finding your own voice and all of that. But we feel that there are some tools, there are some pillars and resources that we're going to talk about later that will help us recover, restore, realize that self worth. And then we truly believe once you realize it, you end up owning it.
Yes.
And once you own it, then you find your voice. And once you own your self worth, then you will let other people say what they're going to say and it won't impact you. So it's not like saying, well, whatever, what you say doesn't matter. That's easier said than done.
It is.
So we feel like if you can lay those foundations for self-worth, then you will be able to say that doesn't affect me.
Well, you can go through the healing process, and through that healing process, you realize that these are open wounds that are not scars. They've not developed into scars yet. They're still open wounds. And as you address those issues and address those things and you heal, then you can realize that you are worthy of love, that unconditional love that you can first give yourself. And then you can find your worth, and you can find that just because someone did this to me or this happened or I'm going through this trial or whatever in your life, this bad storm, then you are still worthy as a human being just for being you.
And so we feel like this podcast is truly for everyone, but especially people those of you like us that have had trauma, those of us who haven't found our voice, those of us who have struggled with people pleasing and a myriad of other things, perfectionism even, to try to lay down that foundation. So it is really for anybody, but I was thinking it could be for a wife or a husband who's never found their voice. Could be for a young person that's searching for that identity and their confidence as they grow through their teenage years. It could even be for someone in their older years that has given up their power all their lives. And we feel like this can be a real aha moment, a real liberation
Yes.
when we find and recover and realize and own our self-worth, that it's going to be life-changing for you. And so we hope that you'll stick with us as we go forward. Today, we're really just going to give you the overview and how we got to this place. Now, we said it's been a labor of love coming for like 4 years. And it's not because we've just delayed in bringing it to you. There's been a whole journey behind it, and we just want to share a little bit about that with you. So the journey goes back to really 2021. Now we're recording here from Georgia, but this journey started on the other side of the country in Santa Monica, California. What in the world were we doing in Santa Monica, California, bringing our combined Aussie and Southern accent to the Wild Wild West?
I know.
They didn't know what to do with us over there. But how did we get there, and how does that tie in with our story?
So we were preparing in Georgia and you in Tennessee to get married. And you were between jobs,
Mhm.
and my job allowed me to work remotely.
Mhm.
So a friend was working in California during COVID and said, "Hey, get a job out here, come out here and work." And testing for COVID.
Yeah,
So
come out here and stick things up people's nostrils. That's
yes,
what it was
that's what
really
it was.
to
That's what it
prove.
was.
Nothing Hollywood about it.
No. And so we got a basic certification, got a job out there. And so we said, well, we will move up the wedding and we will go ahead and just get married and then go out there. So we did. We get out there thinking this is going to be a ministry type thing, and we love people. We love helping people. And so we go out there, and God has such a hilarious sense of humor.
Hmm.
And we ended up in Santa Monica in the parking lot of a bar.
A bar.
So back in the day, I'd been to bars, but James had
I
not.
had never been to a bar. That might seem a bit extreme for some of you. I grew up, I guess, pretty sheltered in some ways. So I had never been to that sort of environment, let alone in a place like Los Angeles or Santa Monica. So it was a real eye opener for me, but for both of us, really.
Yes, yes. Well, California, was different for me because I had never really traveled a lot until I met James. And so we were, not attending the bar, but we were working in the parking lot
Hmm.
as quasi nurses,
We were testing for
just
people as they were going to
going
the
into the
bar.
bar. So
Not,
just testing to make sure that they were COVID free if they didn't have a vaccine card.
Yeah. So we weren't actually employed by the bar. It was like an external contracted
Medical
company.
company, yes.
So, so yeah, we didn't really know we're going to end up there until we got there.
Right, right.
And
Then we got
so, yeah.
our assignment.
But, what seemed to be something, well, we didn't understand while we were there. I mean, it was a culture shock and we had some funny experiences. I mean, I can't not tell the moment someone said, while we were testing, love your accent. And I'm used to people noticing my accent because I'm from Australia. So I kind of stepped forward and said, and they said, not you, sir. We love her Southern accent. Your accent doesn't
And
matter.
I was like, I don't have an accent.
Yeah. So, and that, not that that relates to self worth, but I was so used to being noticed for my Aussie accent. But they seem to love the Aussie accent, the Aussie accent, but they love the Southern accent more over there. They're intrigued by it. But while we were there testing, we were just exposed to some experiences as we met people,
So
young
many
people.
beautiful people, so many
Yes.
sweet people, very, very open and honest. and sharing their stories and stuff, sometimes while they're inebriated, sometimes not. And we got to know a lot of people and see them, just as human beings. We're just these lowly workers, testing their nostrils. And some of them were there often. And so we got to know them by name, and they got to know us by name and would look for us and or bring us. Like one time they brought us a Thanksgiving dinner because we had to work on Thanksgiving. So beautiful, sweet people.
And not
We
all of them were
enjoyed every
from
moment.
Los Angeles. They were
No,
from
from
all
all over the
around.
world.
We met people that were kids of celebrities. There was one
Mhm.
guy, again, we're not going to go into names, but there was one guy whose dad was a famous celebrity. There was YouTubers. I met a YouTuber. We met a guy, I remember, from New York with a strong New Yorker accent. So
Yes,
people
yes.
from all over the place, but that was just so
Realtors,
kind. A
yeah,
realtor guy.
nurses, doctors.
And we established a relationship. Both Gail and I are very big on creating relationships. And in such a short time, we established some real good relationships. And in those moments, especially as they're going in, so they're not necessarily at that point inebriated, we had some people open up to us about their struggles.
Yes, yes. And
And
sometimes, sometimes before, sometimes after,
yeah.
and we would have long discussions about their situation or the death of a family member
Mhm.
or the relationship they had with their significant other or their family member, their mom or dad, brother or sister. They were very, very trusting of
Yeah.
us, and we gave them space to be open and honest with us.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that, but I think coming from our backgrounds, they kind of sensed that we were genuinely interested,
Yeah.
and that we did give them a safe space, often in just private conversations.
Hmm.
I remember one girl was just in tears, telling us about her backstory, her upbringing, her journey, her relationship, I think, with her dad, if I remember correctly, and then the relationships that she'd gotten herself into, and she was just bawling her eyes out.
Yes.
You know.
And if you looked at her, you would think she's got it all. This child has never dealt with a day of pain. And that's where brokenness is hiding. It's hiding inside. It's not always on the outside. It doesn't say broken across the person's forehead. It doesn't show in their clothes. It doesn't show in what they're driving or the job they have or whatever. You have no idea what someone's going through, and externally you can get a false sense. You cannot judge that book by its cover. You
Yes.
cannot. Not when it comes to any human being. The depth of despair in human beings is so deep, and it's so sad.
Yes. And it's especially interesting. Interesting is not the word, but ironic that in a place where people are really well to do and they're often really well dressed up and they often drive very nice cars and houses, that this is still there. And
Mhm.
often this is even more present because people, or we in general, use things to cover up and compensate, sometimes overcompensate for a low sense of self worth. So it's interesting being in Santa Monica, and it was a more affluent community, and yet it was still there. And even with young people. So, what was most interesting about that whole experience is that, well, one, it was unexpected to us, and it proved a real blessing because we're able to see this for ourselves, in real people. But what I was going through at the same time, and I think it was the combination of that and what we were witnessing that really spoke to us, because I had just gone through a big life change.
Several life changes
Yeah, yeah, actually, there were several life changes
all
that
at
happened
once,
all
yes,
at once.
or
And
simultaneously.
yeah, and so our trip to California was not only a honeymoon, but it was to be a time of, I guess, dealing with some of the fallout from those things. And I wasn't doing too well at the time. So while we were there enjoying some aspects of it, I was going through some real deep trauma and symptoms behind the scenes. So a lot of these young people would not have been aware. Even the people we work with were not all fully aware. But I was dealing with some deep, deep symptoms that not only came from those life changes, but that I had been, I guess, masking or covering up unintentionally for many, many years. In fact, my whole life.
Yes.
And
Back to childhood,
yeah, and what I'm
which a lot
skirting
of people
around
do.
was that I went through a divorce, and I also had the shift of career, and also I was empty nesting. And so there was just a coming together of things. So I hit some pretty deep depression, just to name some things, and anxiety and things that I was going through that I had not anticipated, that were pretty acute and pretty extreme. And at the same time, I was trying some different medication to help with that, and with varying degrees of success, often with not much success. And that was happening at the same time as this parallel experience. And it didn't mar the experience, but it really gave us pause to really think about all of this together, and what I was dealing with in terms of ultimately my self-worth, what we were seeing on the streets there and outside that bar, with people dealing with self-worth, that completely different walk of life to me. And then you'd also been through some stuff yourself. You maybe weren't dealing with acutely in that moment, but you also have experienced those same things over time, right?
Yes, yes. And a lot of the things I dealt with, divorce. I dealt with lots of things from my childhood. So when James went through his breakdown, I was resilient to
Mhm.
some things, and I could be strong for you
Yes.
when you needed me. But then, a year and a half ago or so, year and a half, 2 years ago, I had another uh, situation that brought me to my knees,
Hmm.
and you had healed some broken parts and some open wounds, and so you were able to be there for me and be my rock when I needed you. We've been
Yeah,
a
you
good.
certainly were there for me through this time we're talking
Right,
now.
right. And thankfully we had we were able to deal with our healing and what we were going through. We weren't dealing with that publicly. We were dealing with that behind the scenes, so we could also be there for, say, our coworker that's in a bad situation and not functioning very well. Some of these people that we were meeting. So I think it gave us pause, to realize we weren't going through difficult things,
Yeah, and that's
alone. We weren't alone. There were people all around us that were hurting. And I think when you can look outside yourself, it helps with your perspective and as you deal with your own brokenness.
and look, that wouldn't be unlike many of those listening and watching this podcast,
Exactly.
where sometimes you have to function at a high level and be there for others. And whilst you're at the same time dealing with your own stuff behind the scenes, I know from my background, those who work in pastoral ministry can most often are working from a place of internal brokenness, and there's a lot of things going on, and yet you're called upon to help other people with their brokenness. And
Exactly.
so it wouldn't be unfamiliar for maybe you to have lived that dual existence where you're helping others and you're also going through deep things. The only thing I want to say to that is that can also mask things and leave things unresolved and
Yes.
swept under the carpet. And I'll be the first to confess that I did that unintentionally and left that for too long, and that compounded the symptoms that came later on. And
Right.
and I want to be very clear at the outset of this podcast that we are not going to be discussing, previous spouses or being specific with those things. What we are wanting to do is just look at our experiences ourselves. We want to take a look at ourselves, where we have fallen short, where we have had deficiencies, clear deficiencies that our exes would be very aware of, but maybe there were blind spots for us, and we can only start with ourselves. So we
Exactly.
wanted to make this about just looking at the emotional things that deficiencies and maybe mental health deficiencies, other deficiencies that that we, and especially myself, left unaddressed. And then they kind of came to the fore and I was forced to deal with them. And we want to do this not for any self treatment, but to help you as well, because we feel like it's so important to speak about these things openly so we can help each other.
Right, right. I think we can share some of the tools that we've learned along the way that have helped us, and they can help you too. And this has been a very much a labor of love the past 4 years. Our hearts are for people, and we want to share with others because we know there are people, we've seen it firsthand. There are people that are hurting so badly, that are living the dual lives.
Yeah.
I did that. I was that person as
Yeah.
well. I was further along in my journey than maybe you were. But then there were other things that, I had blinders on
Yes.
that I did not realize were so crucial. Things that I had taken from my childhood, from my parents, from reactive episodes and things that I had carried into adulthood that I thought I had dealt with.
Yeah.
And I really had only touched the surface. As we heal, and I think healing is a forever process. Personal growth is a forever process. And as you learn, then I think it's a good thing that you can help others, share with others things that you've learned and how that personal growth is going for you. We've come to that point, even though, we're still in this journey.
Yeah. And we want to add to that the fact that, we do come from backgrounds in assisting others with their journey professionally as well. My background, I've served as a pastor and counselor for individuals, marriages. I've worked with people with mental health issues, especially issues like schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, depression. And so we bring that to the table as well, I guess a level of expertise. But I guess we add to that now a personal perspective, not just that professional perspective. And so we feel that that's worth sharing with you.
Right.
One common theme that's going to keep coming up is trauma and PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. We believe that there's a lot of people dealing with trauma. In some cases, it's very obvious trauma. In other cases, it's very subtle trauma. I know in some people's eyes, there's bigger traumas and smaller traumas, but we don't believe that. We feel like trauma is trauma, no matter how you have experienced it, no matter how you've drunk it in. If it's internalized and caused a wound that continues to perpetuate in your life, it's trauma.
Yes.
So significant trauma in my life that we're going to discuss is the loss of my father when I was 20, and that caused a lot of grief and bereavement and impacts that way. But a lot of the trauma that we're going to be discussing for me is emotional trauma that perhaps came from other sources right back to childhood. So it's still trauma. It's still post traumatic stress disorder. It's still a form of trauma. And we're going to be talking about that a lot. And I've seen that no more obvious than in our vets in here in the United States. Now, your dad is a vet, and
Yes.
so
Yeah. Vet.
yeah, Vietnam vet, and vets deal with a lot of PTSD, and
Yes.
you're pretty familiar with your own dad, having been a vet, and the different things around that as well.
Yes. Yes. He still suffers from PTSD. And, I didn't know his experiences because he's one person that doesn't like to talk about what he saw and what he experienced in Vietnam. And I think a lot of vets are like that. Some are willing to share and get it out, and then others are more closed. And that generation that my dad is from, they don't talk a lot about their feelings.
Yeah,
I think they were made to stay silent, be a man and don't share your feelings. And my dad has softened over the years, and he has talked to me now about some of the things, and it breaks my heart because I know that what he suffered what he saw was tremendous,
Yeah.
and that has to stay with him and any other vet. And I just don't feel like we serve our vets well these days and take care of them like they deserve, at least not in America,
Yeah. So,
from my
I'm not
perspective.
from this country, but we also have vets in Australia, Anzac vets, World War One, World War Two, Vietnam vets as well. And we want to just say that there is no one more proud of her dad than Gail.
Oh,
And,
he's
we
my
have so
hero.
much pride. He is, and me too. He's our hero. And there's complex PTSD because there's so many other things mixed in with it. These guys and gals were very brave. And they were young and brave. And what they did was heroic.
Yes.
They served their countries in such a high level of
When
bravery.
when they were only children,
Yes, when they were young. And then
such young heroes.
they have to come back to society. Often there's stigma. There's also that desire to not want to show any weakness because,
Right.
we're doing okay. So there's nothing negative to say about our vets. It's just that in those days, these things were talked about. And frankly, even now, we still don't really get to the heart of it. So we only mention our vets and we're very thankful for their service,
Yes,
very
thank you.
proud of them. But we only mention that because that's a form of PTSD. And
Yes.
that because of many complex issues, we don't get to the root of it. And a lot of these people that were so heroic don't get the help that they need and often go through their whole lives having to deal with things on their own. It's just sad, and we want to also, if you are a vet out there, we want to have this dialogue with you so that you can have more quality of life as well, and you don't have to live with all of those symptoms. So we
Yes.
come from a place of respect for that. We feel so passionately about it,
Yes.
and it's because it's such a core, fundamental human experience. Self-worth and trauma and how that all works together is so core, so not addressed. We lack, for all of our knowledge on psychology and the ubiquitousness of psychologists and psychotherapists and counselors and people in the mental health space. I still think there's more that we can learn, especially when it comes to mental health and emotional health, especially in these complex situations.
And finding the right counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, the right medicine, that is to the individual person. But it's really hard to find someone that you feel like you can be vulnerable and safe with. And that is so important, and feel like this is an unconditional conversation. I'm not going to be judged, because when you are lacking self worth, that's your first thought. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to share. I don't want to
Trust,
trust.
trust.
Trust is so
Mhm.
huge. And there are so many spaces where you should be able to uh, trust
Yes.
family members, friends, churches. Maybe the family members didn't give you that safe
Yeah.
space. Friends didn't, church didn't. So there's a lot of hurt in various areas.
We feel like that a podcast can offer, because I was thinking also financially can preclude
Oh,
you from getting the
yes.
treatment, because sometimes it's just not enough money in your budget, or you just don't feel that, when things are tight, that this is something that you want to spend money on. You don't want to spend it on yourself. So we get all
Or
of that.
insurance.
Yep, we
You
get
don't
all of
have
that.
insurance.
So yeah, some people don't have insurance. So we feel that a podcast is a great way that is completely at no cost to you, and we feel that it could be a real tool as we can share some of these things free of any cost, but get to the bottom of things. We also want to be a community of support for those of you who are watching or listening. We, like I said at the beginning, we don't want this to be a one-sided thing. We don't want this to be so much entertaining or even just educational as it is a two-way conversation. So we will welcome comments. We will welcome and give you information so we can stay in contact and build a community of support. And
Yes.
we're going to use things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy tools as well. which is something where you can take charge of your own emotional and mental health. But we're not saying that it has to replace other methods. And we are not professionals, and we're not here to tell people whether they should go on drugs or not go on drugs or come off drugs.
Or
We're
see a
not saying
therapist or
that.
not see a
Yeah.
therapist. I think finding the right therapist is always a good idea.
Yes.
Finding the right doctor is always a good idea. These are just tools that you can start on your own in the healing process and getting to the root of the problem. And I still think that everybody should find their unconditional person that is willing to just sit with you in the mud. If you are going through something, you need somebody to just sit with you sometimes and not offer advice, not
Mm-mm.
offer um tools or a solution. Or sometimes you just want to be heard.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want
Validated.
to sit there and say nothing.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
We're gonna
Sometimes that's
explore
okay too.
we're going to explore not only tools that will help you and us grow personally, but also these tools will be very insightful in how to help someone that you love uh, go through their journey.
Yes.
Because even being a support person can be very complicated and difficult. And so I'm hoping that we're going to explore some tools there as
Yes.
carers, as support people. And dare I say it, for pastors, for churches, friends, family, even if you are not the person dealing with this acutely at this time, that you could learn from this to help someone else, or even share some of these episodes with someone that's going through this, knowing that this is truly a safe place, truly a place where judgment does not belong. It's truly a place where we want to just openly come alongside you and just truly love you unconditionally
Yes.
and grow through these things with you. So, with that in mind, we just want to share, I guess, is coming forward from here as we dive into our episodes, because we want you to take this journey with us. So, our mission and our mission statement is simple. We want to help you realize and own your self-worth so that you can live with wholeness, purpose, and real impact in your life. We really want those two things to be clear: realization of self worth, but also that we learn to own our
You
self
have to
worth.
own it.
And
Yes.
we believe that it's going to have that impact to live with wholeness, purpose, and real impact in every area of life.
Yes.
So,
And experience real joy.
yes. So I want to share with you just briefly that we have what we call the 5 intrinsic pillars of self worth recovery. These are things that we're going to share with you going forward in our episodes. These pillars that we believe lie beneath and hold up self worth, that are key to the recovery portion, are: 1, identity, intrinsic value recognition. Number 2, there's the aspect, of mindset, the cognitive and neural wiring that goes on, the narrative that we tell ourselves, the lies that we
The
tell
lies.
ourselves.
There are so many lies.
So
Yes.
there's a lot of self speak that's distorted, that needs to be rewired. Our neuro pathways need to be
Self
rewired.
deprecation,
Yes,
which we
yes,
do not allow in our house.
yes.
We
This
do
is
not. That's a no no.
and for this
No self deprecating.
podcast, this is a self deprecation free zone.
Yes.
And I'll need you guys to remind me of that from here and there, just in case I forget. But that the mindset is number 2. Number 3 is resilience, especially in emotional mastery. This is a big one: how to develop and navigate our emotions, how to regulate our emotions. Number 4 is belonging. We feel that belonging and connection is super important. Once you establish that clear identity, once you begin to rewire the mindset, once you start building that emotional resiliency, or
And
rebuilding
healing.
and
Yes.
healing,
Developing scars instead of the
that's
wounds.
right. We're going to talk about scars instead of wounds. Then we're going to really need the importance of connection and belonging. And I've
It's
noticed that in my journey.
it's so
Sometimes it's a
important.
lonely feeling
Very.
on
Yes.
that limb when you're dealing with these things. And relationships is so key. And
Yes.
finding those unconditional, non judgmental, safe spaces so that these things can solidify in our journey. So that's very important to belonging.
Yes, because we weren't meant to be alone.
That's right.
Social media, remote jobs, all this it takes us away from people, and we weren't made to be alone. It is so lonely, even when you think that, oh, I've got this person or I've got that person, or we have work meetings and I see my peeps once a week or something. You need community. You need to feel like you belong, and not just through the lens of a podcast or a screen or a phone. It's crucial
Yeah.
to be around people and have those relationships, your unconditionals that we call them.
I know you've probably heard that even though communication in our era is such a major thing, we have so much communication, means of communication. It's said that we are the generation that communicates least effectively.
Yeah.
And that's because sometimes we've used some of these mediums as a replacement for true human communication. And you might be sitting there and saying, I don't want that in my life. And I get that. I get it. And so it's not about forcing you to do anything, but it's about recognizing that we do need to find that sense of belonging somewhere that is crucial to this process.
Yes.
So that was number 4. And then the last one is purpose. We need to live in alignment with what matters most to us, to know the purpose for our lives. And without that 5th element there, you really don't have your sense of value. You don't
Right.
have your voice. You don't have that truth guidance in your life that's not driven by external pressures.
Well, or children. We see it a lot of times when you're empty nesting, and parents are like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't have a purpose now. My kids are grown. My
Oh,
kids
yeah.
are going to college, or
Yes.
this, or someone retires. There are so many people that retire and they don't know what to do anymore.
Yep.
They have been needed on their jobs for so long. And now all of a sudden the date comes, and they have no idea what to do. They don't play golf, or they don't
Yeah.
have a friend group or whatever. And discovering that purpose is so important.
Yes.
To just continue living. It is so important.
So just to recap, because we're going to be exploring these things going forward, we don't want to spend all the time on this episode on them, but the 5 are, remember, identity, mindset, resilience, belonging, and purpose. Again, identity, mindset, resilience, belonging, and purpose. Those are the 5 intrinsic pillars that are holding up self-worth. And we believe as we find our journey or our pathway to healing, we need to address all 5 of these.
Yes.
And we truly believe that once we address these through some practical resources and some really achievable things that we can do, we can take charge of our own self-worth. And if we do those things correctly, we truly believe that our self-worth will be restored, will be recovered. We will realize our self-worth, not because someone told you, just do it, but because we've deliberately worked on these 5 pillars. And throughout our show or podcast, we're going to break it up into different episodes, and we're going to deal with real life stuff, real life symptoms of self-worth or low self-worth. And some of these symptoms may be familiar to you. Perfectionism, as I mentioned earlier. People pleasing is one that I mentioned earlier as well. Self-blame
Oh,
and
shame.
self-blame, shame, and guilt, all those things that go along with it. And we will talk about gaslighting as well, that can lead people to a wrong form of self-blame. We are going to talk about that negative self-talk that goes on in the brain
Yes.
that needs to be
Yes.
addressed. Procrastination,
ADHD.
yes. Imposter
Guilty.
syndrome. I'm going through a list here. Emotional dysregulation, codependency, boundaries, which is really important, jealousy and envy, which is very deep down for many of us, resentment or resentfulness, body dysmorphia, and many, many more.
Yes.
So those are the things that we're going to be discussing in our podcast. Those are the symptoms that you may be going through. We hope that maybe one or more of those are things that you're wrestling with that, like us, you would like to receive freedom from. So we do encourage you to journey with us as we go deep, as we go deeper than just pruning the tree. We go down to the roots and explore the I'm Matter mindset and living
Yes.
from a solid sense of intrinsic self-worth.
Yes. And in the comments, please let us know if there's something you want us to address, if there's something that's on your heart or something you're dealing with. Please let us know and we can take note of that.
Yeah, that's for those watching on YouTube. As we roll this thing out, we will be giving you perhaps an email where you can send comments to if you're listening on a podcast platform other than YouTube. So that is it. This is the I'm At Mindset. We finally are here. We are making a big impact on the world. Again, this is James and Gail, or Gail and James, with the I'm At Mindset podcast. We've enjoyed sharing these few moments with you. This has been the general overview. We're going to get into some more practical, nitty-gritty stuff going forward. So thank you for hanging in there with us today. We look forward to our next episode, and thank you for joining us on the I Matter Mindset. You want to remind them not to forget to what?
Click and subscribe.
Don't forget to click and subscribe
Share with your friends and family.
so that you can get future episodes. Thank you so much for being with us. Bye for now.
Bye.